Alex was sitting on the edge of his bed, scrolling through his phone without really paying attention. His room was small, with posters of bands nobody else listened to and books stacked in corners that looked like they might topple at any moment. He wanted something different, something big, but never knew where to start. The day had already begun feeling kind of lost, and he felt that emptiness in his chest, like he was waiting for something he didn't even know. His backpack, still full of piled-up tasks, seemed heavier than anything. Sitting there alone, Alex took a deep breath, unaware that a turning point was about to happen. He looked out the window and, for a moment, wished he could be someone else. But could anything really change? At breakfast, he barely touched his food. The sound of the blender mixing fruit was almost hypnotic, and Alex drifted into thoughts about what it would take to have the courage to stand out. His mom called from the other side of the house, asking if he was going to be late for school, but he just mumbled a "yeah, okay" without enthusiasm. At school, he slinked through the hallways, avoiding any gaze, any long conversation. It felt like the world had decided to move too fast for him. Still, Alex had a curious way of observing everything, every detail, every gesture from people, as if he was waiting for a clue about what he should do with his life. He always arrived at class last, grabbing a quiet corner and shrinking into his chair. The jokes of his classmates flew past him, but he never really laughed, just gave an awkward smile. Sometimes he wanted to join in, but shyness was a wall that seemed impossible to cross. Even so, deep down, Alex had that little spark of wanting to be noticed, to show that he could do more. He just didn't know how to ignite that flame. And that feeling of, what if I never make it, weighed heavier than any test or assignment. After classes, Alex wandered the empty school hallways, hearing his own footsteps echo. He spent hours alone in the library, flipping through books and magazines, looking for something he didn't even know. Every page seemed to promise adventure, but when it came time to try, he froze. It was like the real world was too intimidating to welcome him. Still, he paid attention, watching others trying, falling, and getting back up. Something inside him knew he could learn, that he could change. But fear always came as a shadow to snuff out any momentary courage. When he got home, he dropped his backpack on the floor and flopped onto the couch, staring at the ceiling without thinking about anything concrete. The TV played shows he barely watched, just to have some background noise. Life felt repetitive, a cycle dragging on that he didn't know how to break. Sometimes he imagined what it would be like if he had more courage, if he could speak without stammering, or risk trying something new. But that fantasy ended the moment reality called him back. Still, there was a tiny spark of curiosity, a hidden desire to discover what might happen if he really tried. Alex had small habits, almost imperceptible, always fixing his hair the same way, tapping his foot when nervous, biting the tip of his pen when thinking. He did these things without noticing, little gestures that betrayed his anxiety and shy nature. Even so, he had a quiet charm, an attentive gaze, and a sensitive way that could win anyone over if he let it. But he kept it all hidden, as if protecting himself was easier than taking a risk. And in that hiding, something inside him already felt that something big could happen. He just didn't know when. At night, before going to sleep, Alex looked out his bedroom window, seeing the city lights blinking far below. He felt a mix of calm and restlessness, a sense that life was passing too fast, and he hadn't done anything meaningful yet. He thought about all the things he wanted to change, but always returned to the same feeling of helplessness. Yet there was a small whisper inside him, a voice saying, "Maybe today will be different." And that thought made him restless, curious, waiting for something he couldn't imagine. And at that exact moment, with the moonlight reflecting on his bedroom wall and the city's heavy silence around him, Alex had no idea his life was about to change in a way nobody could imagine. A surprise, something unexpected was on its way, and all he could feel was the tension in the air, without really understanding what was coming. It was as if the world had paused for a second, holding its breath with him. And in that instant, the first step toward Alex's transformation began to take shape, though he still had no idea it was only the beginning. Alex was sitting at his desk, staring blankly at the homework he hadn't started yet. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the computer. Then something caught his eye. A plain envelope slipped under the door. He picked it up slowly, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and unease. The handwriting was neat but unfamiliar. His heart skipped a beat as he turned it over, wondering who would send him a letter like this and why. For a moment he just held it, feeling the weight of it in his hands. Part of him wanted to ignore it, toss it aside, pretend it wasn't there. Another part felt a strange pull, a whisper telling him that maybe this could change everything. He hesitated, biting his lip, staring at the envelope like it was a puzzle he needed to solve. The air around him seemed to thicken, and the tension made his chest tighten. Finally, he tore it open carefully, almost afraid of what he might find inside. The paper was crisp, and the message was short but clear. A challenge. Alex blinked a few times, reading and rereading the words, trying to make sense of them. His hands trembled slightly, and a cold sweat formed on his forehead. Could this really be meant for him? Was it a joke or something more serious? His mind raced with questions, doubts, and possibilities. What kind of challenge was this? Was it safe? Did he even have what it takes? Fear and excitement battled inside him, twisting together in a way he had never felt before. For the first time in a long while, his day-to-day worries seemed trivial compared to the mystery of what lay before him. Alex looked around the room, as if the walls themselves might offer a clue. Everything seemed normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. The envelope in his hands suddenly seemed heavier, as if it carried more than just paper, as if it carried a chance, a turning point, a door to something entirely unknown. He felt his pulse quicken and a strange thrill crawling up his spine. He debated what to do next. He could set the letter aside, pretend it didn't exist, and go back to his usual routine. But part of him, the part that had been quietly dreaming of something bigger, urged him to read every word, consider every line, and take a chance. His curiosity was stronger than his fear, and for the first time in weeks, he felt alive in a way he hadn't before. As he read the instructions again, his mind started spinning with possibilities. The challenge wasn't simple. It required courage, skill, and persistence. Alex's stomach twisted with anxiety, but also with anticipation. He realized that accepting this could be the first step towards something he had secretly wished for, even if he didn't fully understand it yet. And at that moment, staring at the letter and feeling the weight of his own decision, Alex felt a spark ignite inside him. Something was shifting. His life, as mundane and repetitive as it had been, was about to take a turn that nobody could have predicted. He didn't know it yet, but the first step toward an adventure that would transform him forever had just begun. Alex sat on his bed, the letter still open in front of him. His mind was spinning, caught between fear and curiosity. Part of him wanted to ignore it, tuck it away, and pretend nothing had happened. But another part, an unfamiliar, restless part, kept whispering that this could be the moment he had been waiting for, even if he didn't fully understand what it was. He stared at the words again, trying to imagine what it would be like to accept the challenge. The thought made his stomach twist with anxiety, but also a strange thrill. What if he failed? What if it was harder than anything he could handle? Yet beneath the fear, there was a flicker of excitement. For the first time in a long while, life seemed like it might hold something extraordinary. Alex stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. He wondered what people his age were doing, if they were taking risks, chasing dreams, or just going through the motions. A pang of longing hit him. He wanted to be bold, to break out of the routine, to finally do something that mattered. But the comfort of staying safe kept whispering in his ear, urging him to retreat. He picked up the letter again, running his fingers over the paper. The words seemed to pulse, almost alive, like they were daring him. Alex's thoughts bounced between courage and doubt. Could he really do this? Was he brave enough? Every what-if weighed on him. What if I fail? What if it's too hard? What if I embarrass myself? The questions piled up, but the pull to act only grew stronger. Alex paced the room, muttering to himself, trying to reason with the swirl of emotions. He thought about all the times he had held back, all the moments he had let fear decide for him. And for the first time, he wondered what life could be like if he actually took a step forward instead of retreating. The idea terrified him, and at the same time, it felt electric. He sat back down, staring at the ceiling, imagining both outcomes. One path led to safety, routine, and the familiar. The other led to the unknown, risk, and maybe failure, but also the possibility of discovering something incredible about himself. Alex realized that choosing the unknown would change everything, even if he wasn't sure he could handle it. His fingers tapped nervously on the envelope. He thought about the moments in life he wished he had been braver, the times he had wished for change but never reached for it. The letter was more than a piece of paper. It was a door, a chance to step into a version of life he hadn't dared to dream of before. Fear and excitement battled inside him, each vying for control. Finally, after what felt like hours, Alex exhaled slowly. He knew that ignoring the letter would mean staying the same, and staying the same was no longer enough. The spark of curiosity, the whisper of adventure, was louder than the fear. And in that moment, he made a choice, one that would set everything in motion. He decided to accept the challenge, not knowing how it would change him, but knowing it was the first step towards something he had never imagined possible. Alex stared at the letter one last time, taking a deep breath. His hands trembled slightly, but there was something in his chest, a spark he hadn't felt before. He knew that saying yes would change everything. The safety of routine was gone, and the unknown stretched out in front of him like an open road. For the first time, he felt the thrill of stepping into something bigger than himself. He folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his backpack, almost like carrying a secret key to a new world. Alex's mind raced with questions, but there was also a strange calm. The fear was still there, but it didn't dominate him. It was like a companion now, reminding him he was alive, reminding him that he was doing something bold. At school, Alex felt different. Even small tasks seemed charged with energy. Every step, every glance, every choice felt like part of a bigger adventure he had just embarked on. He noticed things he never did before, the way sunlight hit the hallway, the rhythm of footsteps echoing on the tiles, the small smiles of people passing by. Everything seemed sharper, more vivid, like life had suddenly turned up the volume. His first steps toward the challenge were awkward, tentative. Alex had no idea what he was getting into, and that was terrifying. But there was also excitement, a thrill that pushed him forward. Each small decision, each tiny action, felt like planting a flag in uncharted territory. He felt alive in a way he hadn't in years, like he was finally doing something that truly mattered. He thought about the times he had backed away from opportunities, how fear had always dictated his choices. Now each heartbeat reminded him he was stepping beyond that old version of himself. It was exhilarating and nerve-wracking all at once. He realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was acting despite it, and that was exactly what he was doing. As he left his room that afternoon, backpack slung over his shoulder, Alex felt a shift inside. The world seemed bigger, possibilities wider. He wasn't just going to follow the routine anymore. He was going to test himself, explore his limits, and see what he was capable of. The journey was just beginning, and he felt the electric pulse of potential coursing through him. Even when doubts crept in, questions about whether he could really handle what was coming, Alex kept moving. The decision to accept the challenge had already altered something fundamental. He was no longer just a spectator in his own life. He was a participant, stepping into a story that was entirely his to shape. And in that moment, as the sun set and the first stars appeared in the sky, Alex realized that the real adventure had begun. The letter was more than paper. It was a doorway to change. And with one brave decision, he had taken the first step toward a life that nobody could have imagined. A life full of courage, discovery, and transformation. Alex quickly realized that accepting the challenge was only the beginning. The first steps were harder than he had imagined. Every task seemed to throw him into uncharted territory, and even small mistakes felt huge. His confidence wavered, and for the first time he wondered if he had bitten off more than he could chew. But still, he kept moving forward, one hesitant step at a time. The initial attempts were messy. Alex stumbled, fumbled, and sometimes just froze, unsure what to do next. Frustration bubbled up, and he caught himself thinking about quitting. It would have been easy to put the letter aside, to retreat into his old routine. But something inside him, a stubborn spark, refused to let fear win. He reminded himself of the choice he had made, and that small reminder gave him the strength to keep trying. Each mistake became a lesson, even if he didn't realize it at first. Alex started noticing patterns, little hints that could guide him through the next step. He began to experiment cautiously, testing his limits, feeling the tension of failure, but also the faint thrill of progress. It was exhausting, but exciting in a way he hadn't experienced before. Sometimes he would look at the challenge and think, "This is impossible." But then he'd catch a glimpse of his own determination in the mirror, or a subtle nod from someone watching him, and that would push him to try again. The path wasn't smooth. It was full of bumps, wrong turns, and moments that made his stomach churn. But Alex discovered a resilience he didn't know he had. Even small successes felt monumental. Completing a single task that once seemed insurmountable sent a rush of adrenaline through him. Alex felt his confidence grow incrementally, each tiny victory reinforcing that he could handle more than he ever thought possible. Fear and doubt were still there, lurking in the background, but now they were tempered by determination. He began to notice how his mind was adapting. Alex was thinking faster, observing better, and anticipating challenges more clearly. Every obstacle he overcame made him more alert, more focused, more capable. The initial panic he felt had faded slightly, replaced by a cautious optimism and a growing trust in his own abilities. Even when setbacks happened, and they did often, Alex started to see them not as failures, but as opportunities to learn. Each stumble became a stepping stone rather than a roadblock. He realized that the challenge wasn't just testing him, it was shaping him, teaching him how to navigate difficulties with patience and persistence. By the end of those first tough days, Alex felt a subtle but undeniable change. He had faced obstacles that would have paralyzed him before, and he was still standing. The journey was far from over, but the first battles had been fought and survived. For the first time, he sensed that he could actually rise to the challenge, and the faintest smile of pride crept across his face. As Alex continued facing the challenge, he started noticing things about himself he hadn't seen before. Small sparks of talent began to emerge, subtle skills that surprised him. It was as if the challenge had unlocked parts of him that had been waiting quietly, hidden beneath layers of doubt and timidity. He felt a mix of amazement and excitement. He was discovering that he was capable of more than he had ever imagined. He found himself solving problems in ways that felt instinctive. Ideas came quickly, almost effortlessly, and he realized that his mind was sharper than he'd ever believed. Tasks that had once seemed impossible now had solutions that made sense to him. Each discovery boosted his confidence, making the next step feel a little less intimidating. Alex also noticed a creativity he hadn't recognized before. When he tried different approaches, experimented or even improvised, he felt alive. His imagination became a tool, not just a daydreaming escape. Each successful attempt sparked a thrill inside him, proof that he was not only capable but also resourceful and inventive. Sometimes it was small things, finding a shortcut, noticing a detail others missed, or staying calm under pressure. Other times it was bigger, unexpectedly coming up with a solution that amazed even those observing him. Alex began to realize that he had talents lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to show themselves. With each new ability he discovered, he felt a shift in how he saw himself. The timid, hesitant boy he had been seemed further away, and in its place was someone alert, capable, and increasingly confident. He was starting to trust his instincts, to believe that he could tackle challenges even when the outcome was uncertain. Even mistakes now had a purpose. Each time he misstepped, he learned something new, and sometimes these failures revealed hidden strengths he hadn't realized he had. Alex's perception of himself was changing. He was not just capable of small wins, but of finding untapped abilities when he needed them most. The realization was exhilarating. Alex felt a rush every time he noticed a new skill emerge. The excitement wasn't just about succeeding, it was about discovering that he had been more than he thought all along. His confidence grew alongside these discoveries, layering over the fear that still lingered but no longer controlled him. By the end of this stage, Alex knew something important. The challenge was not only testing him, it was revealing him. His hidden talents were coming to the surface, and with them came a sense of empowerment he had never experienced. He felt ready to face bigger obstacles, to push further, and to continue uncovering the person he could truly become. As Alex progressed through the challenge, he began to notice that he wasn't completely alone. People around him, unexpected allies, started to appear, mentors who offered guidance, friends who lent support, or even rivals who pushed him to improve. Each interaction brought lessons and insights that Alex hadn't anticipated, shaping him in ways he couldn't have achieved by himself. The first mentor appeared subtly. Someone who had been quietly observing him offered advice that made Alex pause. At first, he was hesitant to listen, unsure if he deserved help or if he could trust them. But as he took their words in, he realized the value in having someone who believed in his potential, even when he struggled to see it himself. Friends and classmates began noticing his efforts and stepping in, sometimes with encouragement, other times with playful challenges. These interactions were like fuel for Alex's growing confidence. He learned that seeking help wasn't weakness, it was a way to grow faster and smarter. Each ally brought new perspectives, new strategies, and a sense of shared adventure that energized him. Some mentors were strict, pushing Alex harder than he expected. At times, he felt frustrated or overwhelmed, but he also knew that each tough lesson was helping him improve. The guidance he received challenged him to rethink his approach, to stretch his abilities, and to confront fears he would have avoided alone. These figures became catalysts for growth, forcing him to rise to the occasion. Through these connections, Alex discovered that teamwork could amplify his strengths. Collaboration with others opened doors to ideas and skills he hadn't considered. It was a revelation. Success was not just about personal effort. It could also come from learning from and relying on others. He felt a sense of camaraderie and trust building alongside his personal growth. Even the rivals or critics played a role. Their doubts and challenges, while frustrating at first, forced Alex to refine his focus and push beyond limits. He realized that opposition wasn't the enemy, it was another form of guidance, a test that revealed where he could improve. Each confrontation helped him sharpen his skills and boost his resilience. Alex started noticing a subtle transformation in how he approached people. He became more open, more willing to listen, and more aware of how others could help him grow. At the same time, he was learning to assert himself, to apply his newfound confidence in interactions that once would have intimidated him. The balance between giving and receiving support became a cornerstone of his progress. By the end of this stage, Alex understood something crucial. Allies and mentors were not just side characters in his story, they were essential. Their guidance, support, and challenges had propelled him further than he could have imagined, and their presence made the journey not only manageable, but also more meaningful. With their help, he was ready to face even greater fears and move closer to discovering his full potential. Alex felt his stomach twist as he faced a challenge that hit closer to home than anything before. It wasn't just difficult, it scared him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Every instinct in his body screamed to run, to hide, to retreat back into the safety of his old routines. But this time, something inside him pushed back, urging him to stand his ground. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of panic inside. His hands shook, his heart raced, but he reminded himself of everything he had already achieved, all the small victories, the talents he had discovered, the guidance he had received. They were not just memories, they were proof that he could handle this. He tightened his grip on his resolve and stepped forward. The fear didn't vanish. It lingered like a shadow, whispering doubts and worst-case scenarios. But Alex learned something crucial. Fear didn't need to disappear for him to act. Courage, he realized, was moving forward, even when your legs wanted to give out and your mind screamed, "Stop!" With each hesitant step, he felt a flicker of power grow inside him. The challenge forced Alex to confront memories of past failures, the times he had frozen when opportunity knocked. Each reminder hurt, but instead of breaking him, it fueled his determination. He reminded himself that he wasn't the same timid boy anymore. He had grown, learned, and adapted. The fear was just a test, one he was ready to face head-on. Alex's body tensed as the challenge escalated. Every move required precision and courage. Each decision weighed heavily. His mind raced, recalling all the lessons from mentors, allies, and past obstacles. The fear was still present, but it no longer dictated his actions. He was in control, channeling the adrenaline and uncertainty into focus and determination. At the peak moment, a critical choice appeared, a point where hesitation could cost him everything. His chest tightened, palms slick, heart hammering. But Alex saw the opportunity within the risk. Summoning every ounce of courage, he acted decisively, trusting his instincts, his skills, and his own growth. It was terrifying but exhilarating. When the moment passed, Alex felt an immense relief and pride wash over him. He had faced his greatest fear and emerged stronger. The fear didn't disappear completely. It never would. But he had learned how to coexist with it, how to transform it into energy and motivation. It was no longer a wall, it was a tool. As he caught his breath and looked around, Alex realized that confronting fear wasn't a single act, it was a turning point. He had stepped into the unknown, faced the worst of what he thought could stop him, and survived. For the first time, he truly felt capable, resilient, and ready to take on whatever the next challenge might throw at him. After confronting his fear, Alex started noticing the little wins that once would have gone unnoticed. Each task he completed, each step he took forward, felt like a quiet triumph. It wasn't about grand gestures or public recognition. It was about proving to himself that he could handle more than he thought. These small victories became the fuel for his growing confidence. At school, he began to participate more. A comment in class, a question asked, a short conversation with a classmate. Each small interaction felt like a victory. For the first time, Alex realized that progress wasn't about instant transformation, but about consistent tiny steps forward. Every small success added up, forming a chain that slowly strengthened his self-belief. Even mistakes started to feel different. Where once they had felt crushing, now they were opportunities to learn. Alex began to see failure not as a wall, but as a doorway to improvement. Each stumble revealed a lesson, a hint, or a strategy he hadn't considered before. The victories weren't always perfect. They were messy, real, and meaningful. He started keeping track in his mind of what he had accomplished. A problem solved, a fear faced, a skill tested and mastered. Each achievement, no matter how small, became proof that he was capable of more than he had believed. Alex felt a quiet pride building, a sense of momentum he had never experienced before. Even interactions with friends and mentors now carried new significance. Every encouraging word, every shared insight felt like a stepping stone toward bigger accomplishments. Alex was learning to celebrate the small things, to acknowledge progress instead of waiting for perfection. The victories, tiny as they were adding up. His confidence began to show in subtle ways, a firmer voice, a steadier posture, a willingness to try new things. People around him started noticing, offering smiles, compliments, and support. Alex realized that change didn't happen overnight. It was the accumulation of moments, actions, and choices that reflected his growth. Sometimes, Alex would reflect quietly on his journey so far. The fear, the mistakes, the challenges, they all led to these moments of triumph, and each small victory made the next one easier to face. He was starting to see a path, a direction, and it was exciting to realize he could actually walk it. By the end of these early successes, Alex felt a tangible shift in himself. The timid, hesitant boy was still there in part, but the spark of confidence and courage was growing steadily. Each small victory was a reminder. He was capable, he was changing, and the bigger challenges ahead were not something to fear. They were opportunities waiting to be conquered. Alex felt a change happening inside him that went beyond skills or achievements. It wasn't just about completing tasks or overcoming fears. It was about who he was becoming. The timid, hesitant boy was still part of him, but now there was a growing sense of confidence, resilience, and curiosity that he couldn't ignore. He noticed it in his thoughts. Instead of doubting himself constantly, he started thinking, "I can handle this," or "let me try one more time." The inner voice that had once whispered discouragement now offered encouragement. Alex realized that transformation wasn't just external. It started in the mind, shaping how he viewed the world and himself. His emotions felt richer, more vivid. Moments of joy, pride, and excitement hit him stronger than ever before. Even setbacks no longer crushed him. They became lessons, temporary obstacles in a journey he knew he was capable of navigating. Fear still existed, but it had been softened by courage and experience. Alex's relationships changed too. He was more open, more willing to connect, and more confident in expressing himself. People started noticing the difference. Friends reached out more, mentors encouraged him further, and classmates began to see a version of Alex that they hadn't seen before. He wasn't just participating, he was making an impact. He also began taking risks he never would have considered before. New projects, bold ideas, stepping up in ways that challenged him. The inner transformation gave him a sense of readiness and empowerment. Every choice felt like a declaration: I am capable, I am growing, and I am ready for more. Even his self-image shifted. He looked in the mirror and saw someone stronger, someone more alive, someone who could face challenges without shrinking away. The internal change was subtle but undeniable, a combination of confidence, resilience, and a newfound self-respect that colored everything he did. The transformation also made him reflective. Alex thought about how far he had come, how fear had once controlled him, and how each challenge, each small victory, and each mentor had contributed to this growth. Gratitude and pride mingled inside him, reinforcing the belief that he could handle whatever came next. By the end of this stage, Alex understood something profound. Change wasn't just about what you do. It was about who you become. The journey had reshaped him from the inside out, preparing him for the ultimate challenge that lay ahead. He felt ready, empowered and alive in a way that no one, not even himself, could have imagined before. The moment had arrived. Alex stood at the edge of the final challenge, heart pounding, palms sweaty, mind racing. Everything he had learned, every skill he had discovered, every lesson from mentors and allies, all of it led to this moment. The stakes were higher than anything he had faced before, and the outcome was uncertain. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. The fear was still there, gnawing at the edges of his mind, but he remembered the victories that had brought him here. Each small success, each conquered fear, had prepared him for this. Now the only choice was to step forward and give it everything he had. The challenge demanded focus, courage, and creativity. Alex had to think quickly, act decisively, and trust himself completely. Every instinct, every lesson learned, every ounce of resilience was tested in a way that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. One wrong move could mean failure, but Alex was ready to risk it. As the obstacles came fast and unpredictable, Alex moved with surprising agility. He drew on hidden talents he hadn't even realized he possessed, solving problems on the fly, improvising when necessary. The thrill of mastering each moment fueled his determination, pushing him to the next hurdle. He was in the zone, completely immersed, alive with purpose. For a moment it seemed impossible. The challenge intensified, doubts crept in, and the weight of everything threatened to overwhelm him. But Alex's inner transformation shone through. He remembered the courage that had carried him this far, the mentors and allies who had supported him, and the small victories that had built his confidence. That memory became a shield, a source of unstoppable resolve. With one final push, Alex tackled the ultimate obstacle. Every skill, every strategy, every bit of courage he had accumulated was put into action. The world around him seemed to fade as he focused completely, time slowing, his heartbeat sinking with every movement, every decision. It was tense, it was high stakes, and it was exhilarating. And then, in an unexpected but brilliant moment, Alex overcame the final challenge. The sense of accomplishment hit him like a wave, overwhelming and joyous. He had not only faced the impossible, but he had also done it in a way that surprised even himself. The journey, the growth, the struggle, it all led to this triumphant moment. As he stood there, catching his breath and feeling the adrenaline slowly fade, Alex realized the truth. He had transformed entirely. The challenge had tested him to the limit, and he had emerged victorious. Fear had been confronted, obstacles had been overcome, and he was stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever before. The climax wasn't just a moment, it was a turning point, marking the start of a new life he had never imagined possible. After conquering the final challenge, Alex felt a profound shift in his life. Everything he had learned, every fear he had faced, every small victory he had celebrated, it all culminated in a new sense of self. The timid, hesitant boy he once was had evolved into someone confident, capable, and ready to embrace life in ways he never imagined. At school, people started noticing the change. Friends and classmates were drawn to his newfound confidence, curious about his determination and the spark in his eyes. Teachers complimented his initiative, and even those who had doubted him before began to see him in a completely different light. Alex realized that transformation wasn't just internal, it was visible to everyone around him. Opportunities began to appear too. He was invited to participate in projects, asked to lead initiatives, and even encouraged to pursue passions he had once dismissed as unreachable. Life, which had once felt repetitive and dull, suddenly opened doors that had always been there, but invisible to the boy he had been. Alex felt exhilarated and ready to step through them. His confidence grew naturally with each new experience. Decisions that once paralyzed him now felt manageable, even exciting. He was more willing to take risks, to speak up, and to trust his instincts. The world didn't feel like a place to hide from anymore. It was a space full of possibilities he could explore. Alex also discovered a deeper sense of gratitude. He remembered the mentors, the friends, the challenges, and even the fears that had shaped him. Each had played a role in forging the person he had become. That awareness made him more compassionate and thoughtful, ready to help others face their own challenges. Even his inner life felt transformed. The constant anxiety and self-doubt that had once dominated him were replaced with a steady confidence and quiet pride. He felt capable of handling setbacks, resilient in the face of difficulties, and eager to continue growing. Every day now carried a sense of purpose, of meaning, and of potential. The changes weren't just external, they were deeply personal. Alex could feel it in his posture, in the way he spoke, in the choices he made. He had become someone who embraced life fully, who faced uncertainty with courage, and who trusted in his ability to rise to any challenge. It was a complete metamorphosis, visible and undeniable. As he looked out at the world with new eyes, Alex understood that his journey was far from over. But he also knew this: the letter, the challenge, and everything he had endured had given him a life full of opportunity, confidence, and adventure. He was no longer the boy who sat silently on the edge of his bed. He was someone who could shape his destiny, and the possibilities were endless.